murder of Anne Widdecombe has not formally been declared a terrorist. In Devon, Alison Hernandez, the Regional Police and Crime Commissioner, responded to the pain of a warrant for further detention and can now hold the suspect for up to 7 days. Downgraded and wasn't sufficient. The foreign criminal leader has had almost 600 death threats since February.
It might look like this, says Simon Gass, a former UK ambassador to Iran. Some sort of arrangement in which no toll could be charged, ships passing through Hormuz, but some recognition that shipping services could be charged under some circumstances, something that allows Iran to say that it retains its authority over the Strait of Hormuz, but in taxes that doesn't really amount to very much. I think that is probably the best you could do at the moment.
For now, though, the U.S. is raising the stakes. It's set to reimpose its naval blockade on Iran and further squeeze the country's struggling economy. Neither side appears ready to return to all-out war, but more and more they're behaving as if the ceasefire deal is over.
Oil prices have risen around the world, and it's been a rocky day on the stock market as consequences of the apparent resumption of the conflict become clearer. Is our business correspondent Mark Ashdown. The renewed attacks by both sides and the aggressive rhetoric saw Benchmark bring. on events which could cause a loss of power or water supplies. Officials will also undertake the biggest home defence exercise in decades next year, as our security correspondent Frank Gardner reports.
Imagine suddenly finding your phone has no signal, the lights have gone out, and the power and water in your home are off. Sound far-fetched? It's not inconceivable, according to the government, which has updated Parliament on its Resilience Action Plan, and also updated its National Risk Register, setting out all the risks it's currently tracking and how it's preparing for them. It comes at a time of heightened tension with Russia, which is believed to be behind numerous cyber attacks, as well as mapping the UK's vital undersea data cables. Darren Jones, the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, told the BBC's PM programme that while some of the risks were not new, there was a growing danger of cyber attacks to our national infrastructure.
The things that have changed in the publication today is that cyber risk and cyber attacks are now more frequent than they've been in the past. We're having to deal with more threats to our democratic processes, but also we're seeing the pace of change in areas like climate change and extreme weather, but also artificial intelligence.
This autumn, the government will be launching a public awareness campaign, advising people on what items to stock up on and how to prepare for a catastrophic loss of power and water. This will be followed next year by the largest home defence exercise in decades, involving hundreds of officials in what's been described as a rigorous test of the country's contingency plans.
What's become known as the government's Hillsborough Law, which places a duty of candour on public officials and authorities, is expected to pass the Commons today after a lengthy delay. Labour pledged to bring in the legislation in its 2024 manifesto, but the bill ran into trouble because of disagreements about how it should apply to intelligence services. Our political correspondent Alex Forsyth reports.
The Hillsborough Law has been long promised and long delayed. Following the crush at the 1989 FA Cup semi-final between Liverpool and Nottingham Forest, which saw 97 people lose their lives, campaigners have fought for legislation to prevent the false narratives and obfuscation they faced in the wake of the tragedy. The law had been delayed because of disagreements on how it should apply to the security services. Now, the government has offered a compromise, saying it will apply to individuals who work for the intelligence agencies with safeguards to protect sensitive information. The Conservatives claimed the law watered down protections for MI5, MI6 and GCHQ and was irresponsible. This afternoon, Sir Keir Starmer met campaigners said to have inspired his actions in government, including some Hillsborough families. He said he was pleased to have delivered what he promised and pledged to continue to stand by them. He's expected to lead the Commons debate this evening, one of his last acts in office. His successor, Andy Burnham, who's long backed the victims' families, is also expected to speak. But beyond politics, the focus is on the campaigners at Hillsborough and other injustices who will hope this bill will prevent others from enduring the same struggles for truth that they have faced.
You're listening to the 6 o'clock news on BBC Radio 4. The main news so far. The COVID inquiry says billions of pounds of public money were wasted in the scramble to secure protective equipment during the pandemic. Counter-terrorism police investigating the death of Anne Widdecombe believe she was killed in a targeted attack. Still to come?
It's not safe to do it because if you put it in a fridge or a freezer, there's a risk of moisture, and then when it does dry out, the moisture, the condensation, turns into water. No phone's waterproof.
Why cold calling might not help your mobile phone during the heatwave. The BBC has revealed that more than 500,000 fewer households purchased a TV licence in the year to March, as the corporation continues to deal with a funding crisis. There's been a steady decline in the number of licences sold, with only 80% of UK households now having one, despite 94% of adults in the UK using BBC services. The corporation's bosses are in talks with the government about the renewal of the Royal Charter, which includes deciding how the BBC will be funded. Our media editor Katie Razzle reports.
For all the good news, with most people in the UK still using the BBC and it reaching 500 million across the world, another dramatic fall in the number of households paying the licence fee is the stark message within the annual report: 539,000 fewer in the last financial year, hitting BBC budgets at a time when production costs have been rising. The BBC has brought down presenter pay, although the former Radio 2 breakfast show presenter Scott Mills was still paid £745,000, before his early exit from the programme. After it emerged, he'd been accused of historical sexual offences, although he was never charged. Other big names, Alan Shearer, Laura Kuenssberg and Radio 1's Greg James, for example, and smaller ones, were in the six-figure bracket. The annual report also shows bullying and harassment cases have gone up, although in the context of a new campaign to call out bad behaviour inside the BBC, that was always likely. But it's the financial pressure that jumped out. Last week, the Director General told MPs the licence fee in its current form was over.